April 2025, the stock was into a kind of sideways zone, but the stock has breaking out of its roof. Now, if you see, one interesting thing about this stock is that on weekly time frame, the volumes are shrinking. So I would recommend the viewer to take book some profit, or he could exit whole of his quantity, and he could accumulate at 210 or 215 levels in coming sessions, because again the stock could correct and it could face some kind of selling pressure.
Okay, okay. So a sell on NACL for a short term, from a short term perspective, but I'd also like to take fundamental view on the counter. Mahesh, quickly, if you could just tell us, are you optimistic about NACL?
No, recently we have already discussed NSCL on the year. So these kind of level, I think stock has a limited upside, or I think you should, if you are looking for a fundamental, don't buy on these levels.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for that. And with that, I'm afraid that we are running short of time on this edition of Ask Profit. But thank you so much for being there with us and patiently being there and solving all our viewers' queries. So thank you so much. And viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of Ask Profit. But please don't go anywhere as Sanjana Chauhan comes up with Profit 360 on the other side of the break.
They promised guaranteed returns. They advertised illegal trading in broad daylight. But NDTV Profit picked up the trail.
2 साल हो गए मैडम। गब्बर ट्रेडिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको? हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा।
We called, we questioned, we exposed.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसे हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है।
मैडम एक बात को खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए तो बताओ, कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं?
Because your money deserves protection, not empty promises. Easy money, hard lesson. Stay alert. Verify before you invest.
जनता के पास सवाल ही सवाल है। जवाब ढूंढने को वो देखती है न्यूज, और देखती है यहां तो सवालों का माया जाल है। ऊपर से ये अलग फाइट है, कोई पूरा लेफ्ट तो कोई पूरा राइट है। बीच में मुद्दे के साथ कौन है, जनता को जवाब चाहिए। इसीलिए सवालों की परेड नहीं, मैं लाऊंगा खबरों की कचहरी। मैं शुभांकर मिश्रा, मेरे साथ देखिए कचहरी रात 8 बजे सिर्फ एनडीटीवी इंडिया पर।
Imports become the exception rather than the norm, and increasingly we do almost last year, for example, of the contracts that we signed of record 2,09,000 crores, 81% was awarded to the domestic industry. Our intent is to manufacture in India, preferably with design also in India.
I am so elated to be on the same screen as the Defense Secretary, and I get a chance to talk about what he said.
In certain areas, like for example, artillery guns and armored vehicles, or in some categories of missiles like the BrahMos and the Akash, we've come of age.
What Defense Secretary Sir said is 100% true, and today private industry can really increase their involvement in R&D.
I am very proud to say that we make, in our categories that we have been supplying to our defense forces, some of the best platforms in the world.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit. Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
Market closes lower for the second consecutive day. Nifty closes below 25,000 and Sensex loses 500 points. Nifty Defence is the top sectoral loser. Reliance Industries overall Q1 earnings come in below estimates. Other income jumps to more than 200% after including proceeds of profit from sales of listed investments. Jio surpasses 200 million 5G subscribers, 20 million home connections. JSW Steel Limited records a 45% rise in its consolidated net profit during the quarter ended. The company outperforms analyst expectations in every area that matters. As India and the US enter the fifth round of trade talks, sources say the ongoing negotiations are focused on securing preferential access for India, raising the question of whether India could land a better trade deal than its Asian peers. Exporters flag delay in US orders amid tariff uncertainty. Sources cite slowdown across sectors such as plastics, pharma and engineering goods. Indian smartphone manufacturers have written to Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, highlighting how China's informal trade restrictions are disrupting their supply chains. They identify choke points, including tighter scrutiny of component imports and other things that are threatening India's global competitiveness. Starlink is set to appoint its India CEO as it builds a core team in Delhi ahead of a planned launch by the end of 2025. The Prime Minister's office convenes a crucial meeting to address India's growing rare earth magnet supply crisis as manufacturers across the auto and electronics sectors warn of severe production risks due to China's tightening export restriction. Good evening, you're watching Profit 360 on NDTV Profit and I'm Sanjana. Along the next half an hour, we're going to bring you the latest in markets as well as national and international news. So let's dive right into it. Benchmarks declined for the second straight session with Nifty closing below 25,000 as financial stocks weighed heavily on the market. Most sectoral indices ended in the red with Nifty Defence emerging as the biggest loser. Earlier today, we also caught up with Ravi Dharamshi, founder and CIO of Value Quest Investment Advisors, to get his perspective on the current market landscape. In our conversation, we delved into the mega trends shaping markets right now and discussed how investors can identify pockets of value amid all the market noise.
Thanks for tuning in to Talking Point Unfiltered. And my guest today is Ravi Dharamshi of Value Quest. And the idea of doing the conversation with Ravi, as I told him as well, was to try and understand that how do large investors think of mega trends and how do they chase these mega trends? How do they diversify their portfolio between 4 or 5 concurrent mega trends that they might be seeing at any given point of time? Ravi, such a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Neeraj. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, you've always spoken about these mega trends all through the times that we've spoken. Back from 2015-16 when I first started talking to you, when I think we were in the midst of the chemical mega trend, if you will, and the pharma mega trend, you kind of try to identify some of these and then maybe invest early in them and then ride the whole wave till you can. Would that be a good summary of one basic investing style?
So let me try and explain a bit with a little bit more nuance and a little bit more in detail. See, in any particular industry, there are phases, right? You have a tough phase, struggle phase, then you hit that inflection point, you have the great growth phase, and then you reach a kind of a plateau, then again you have a growth phase. Idea for us is to identify which that growth phase is. Everybody can name a lot of mega trends today, but even within a mega trend, you make money only when you are invested in that particular growth phase. And for that, you need to be very clear in your mind what stage that particular mega trend is. And there are markers that we keep track of, whether it is the technology curve, the cost curve, behavioral shifts, regulatory shifts, capital flow, talent flow. All these things tell us which way the wind is blowing, how strong that wind is. Is the mass adoption reached that kind of an inflection phase? Are we going to see a J-curve kind of a growth phase?
Now let's take a look at the earnings today. Reliance Industries of Q1 results came in below estimates. The profit jumped 39% while revenue dropped by 7%. Somit now joining us with an analysis.
Well, if you look at the consolidated numbers, they are slightly below than what the street was estimating. On the EBITDA fund specifically, the number has come in at close to 42,905 crore as against street expectations of close to 44,500 crore rupees. It's a miss of around 4%. Now, if you look at the net profit number, yes, it looks way ahead of what the street was estimating at close to 27,000 crore rupees. But that is largely because of the spike that we have seen in other income. And the spike in other income is because they had sold their stake in Asian Paints. So whatever gains were there, around 8,900 odd crore rupees, that is something that they have recorded in other income, and that's the reason the net profit number looks to be quite ahead. Now, if you look at the internals, for the O2C segment, the EBITDA has dipped around 4% on a sequential basis at close to 14,500 crore rupees. So that's again a mess because street was estimating this number to be anywhere between 15,400 crore rupees. For the oil and gas exploration business, the number is pretty much in line with what the street was estimating at close to 5,000 odd crore rupees. The retail segment has again come in below the street estimates. 6,381 is the EBITDA. Street was estimating the number to be around 6,650. For Jio, if you look at the ARPU expectations were around 208.8, and that is what the number has come in. Subscriber number is also pretty much in line with what the street was estimating. So overall, if you look at on a consolidated basis, the numbers seem to be slightly below compared to what the street was estimating.
And turning to other major earnings, JSW Steel delivered a standout performance in the first quarter with net profit soaring 158% year-on-year to 2,184 crore, sharply beating expectations. Sequentially, profits surged 45% over the previous quarter, supported by improved cost efficiency and steady domestic steel sales. Vansh now joining in with a quick review of the numbers.
Yeah, so let's quickly understand the entire picture. The numbers have beaten the estimates and the EBITDA has improved on the account of the lower coking coal and the better steel prices. There has been an inventory build-up due to the fall in the export volumes of the company, and in regards to the Bhushan Steel case, company has already filed a review petition and they believe to have strong grounds to pursue the review petition. In terms of financials, the revenue is fallen by 3% to 43,400 odd crores versus the estimates of 42,800 odd crores. EBITDA is risen by 18% to 7,500 odd crores versus the estimates of 7,200 odd crores. Margins are at 17.4% versus estimates of 16.9%, and net profit has risen by 45% at 2,100 odd crores versus the estimates of 2,000 odd crores. If we talk about the EBITDA per ton, now the EBITDA per ton for the company stands at 11,300 odd rupees versus the estimates of 10,400 rupees per ton. If you talk about the production volumes of the company, the Indian operations saw a 5% sequential decline and the operations for US remained flat, and the capacity utilization for the Indian operations stood at 87%. Now, if we talk about the outlook that the company has given, the company expects the volumes to improve in this Q2 FY26, and they expect healthy performance from the international operations. They also expect muted steel prices in July, and also expect the coking coal prices to further lowered by $5 per ton. And the offset will be led by the cheaper imports and the seasonal factors that is coming in for the company. So this is what the overall picture is looking like for the JSW Steel.
Thanks for that, Vansh. Meanwhile, several major banks are set to report their quarterly earnings in the next coming days, drawing keen market attention. Jasmeet now joining us with a quick preview of what to watch for in these crucial earnings releases.
A bunch of earnings coming up tomorrow as well as on Monday. So here are key things to watch out for when it comes to HDFC Bank earnings. Firstly, the net interest income. It's expected to rise 7% on YOY basis but remain flat on QOQ. When you look at the operating profits for the bank, it's expected to rise 12% YOY basis, and while on QOQ it's expected to be up 1%, and the gross NPA is expected to remain flat at 1.33% on both QOQ and YOY basis. When you look at the key monitorable, what to watch out for in HDFC Bank preview, first thing would be the cost ratio, which is expected to aid the operating profit. Secondly, the asset quality of how it has been stable over this quarter. Thirdly would be the guidance for credit growth. That's something very important to watch out for. And lastly, the provision when it comes to the agriculture segment. While the next one would be the ICICI Bank. So here's the preview and what to watch out for. What is expected out of the Q1 earnings? Firstly, the net interest income is expected to rise up by 8% on YOY basis, while be down 1% on QOQ basis. When you look at the operating profit for this bank, it's expected to rise up by 8% on YOY basis and go down by 2% on QOQ. When you look at the gross NPA, that's expected to inch up by 12 basis point on QOQ basis and expected to be around 1.79%. Now, what to watch out for when it comes to the ICICI Bank? First thing would be the margin, how they have been performed and the decline, and any guidance going forward for Q2. Second thing would be there might be a slight inch up expecting in an NPA ratio. That's something to watch out for. Thirdly, the provision expected to rise off on a low base. That's thirdly. And lastly, what to watch out would be the loan growth to be just double digit. That's some number to keep an eye for. It'll be interesting to watch out how this particular earning turns out tomorrow in trade.
That's right, Jasmeet. All eyes on the next coming days. Moving on, there's movement on the India-US trade talk front, with official sources claiming that this deal will focus on preferential access for Indian exports. This is now the fifth round of negotiations, and insiders say the agreement is expected to be announced as early as next week. My colleague Rishabh has more details from his sources.
What we're picking up from government sources is the fact that this trade deal, which has been imminent for a very, very long period of time, what we're hearing on that about now is that the main theme is going to be preferential access. That is something that Donald Trump has also pointed towards in terms of his deals with Vietnam, his deals with Indonesia. But this is something that we'll also see now with India. That's what we're hearing from the official government side. The Indian negotiating team led by Special Secretary of the Commerce Department, Rajesh Agarwal, continues to be in the US. This will now be the fifth day of negotiations for them. And there is some sort of an outcome that is expected ahead of the August 1st deadline, roughly about 12 days left for that, and that is something that we're keeping our eyes peeled on so far as well. An update on the UK FTA signing as well. Remember, this FTA was finalized about a month or two back, and now the final formal signing of this deal will take place, post which the operationalization of this deal will take about an year or so. So that's what we're hearing, is that the Prime Minister, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is likely to visit the UK for this signing sometime next week, perhaps July end, is what NDTV Profit also reported. But what we know so far is that there's no finalized date, but July end, India's Prime Minister might go for a formal co-signing of the UK FTA with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer as well.
Meanwhile, tariff uncertainty is also weighing on India's exports as US buyers pause new orders ahead of the August 1st tariff deadline. Key sectors including plastics, pharma, electronics and gems are now seeing a slowdown, with exporters bracing for a sharp dip in shipments over the next few months. What are our sources telling us? Let's find out with Rishabh.
What we've picked up on this US tariff uncertainty is the fact that it is now impacting the export plans and the confidence, and rather the order books of Indian exporters. What we've picked up from several exporters is the fact that they have flagged delays in US orders amid tariff uncertainties. What we're seeing is that there is a slowdown in orders across sectors, and that is pharmaceuticals, plastics, as well as engineering goods. what is causing this is, of course, the unpredictability in tariff rates across Southeast Asia. So you're seeing a lot of India's competitors in terms of manufacturing economies, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, a lot of them having a bunch of tariff back and forths with the United States. We saw Vietnam go from a higher rate to a lower rate. Same for Indonesia, expecting something similar for Cambodia and Bangladesh as well as Thailand. So that is something that is impacting the long-term plans of these exporters. What we're also picking up is the fact that the US clients that these exporters have, they are now very cautious over these new orders and especially over long-term orders, given that there was some sort of front-loading in these couple of months ahead of the August 1st tariff deadlines before additional tariffs come into play. You did see a lot of front-loading, but it is the longer-term orders that are seeing some sort of an impact. They are awaiting clarity vis-a-vis the tariff differentials that India has with China, Indonesia, Vietnam. And what we're also seeing is that engineering goods exporters also foresee some sort of a dip coming in because of this front loading, and then they see some sort of a slump coming in starting from August, starting from next month. So what we're also seeing is that plastic exporters saw some sort of a dip between June and July orders as well. Now, all of this comes with the context of Indian negotiators in Washington for this interim trade deal or a mini trade deal that is being negotiated. That is ahead of this August 1st deadline. We do expect some sort of a statement, some sort of a deal to come out of these negotiations that are going on since March now. And we are in the 5th round, and we have our eyes peeled on any sort of outcome coming in from Washington as well as New Delhi.
Meanwhile, India's top smartphone and electronics manufacturers are raising alarms over a pattern of informal and targeted trade restrictions by China, which they say is putting the country's electronics manufacturing ecosystem at a risk. Let me quickly go back to my colleague Rishabh, who has all of the details.
This was a letter that was sent by the ICEA. This is an industry association of electronics manufacturers and smartphone makers. They sent out a letter to Ashwini Vaishnav, India's IT minister, India's IT and electronics minister, on July 1st, asking for an urgent meeting. And also they flagged off 3 very interesting specific choke points that the Chinese have been informally administrating. So these are not curbs that the Chinese government is doing on paper. These are all off paper, informal stuff that is being done by the Chinese administration to stifle India's growth in terms of electronics and smartphones. Now, the 3 choke points that I have here with me, we reviewed a copy of this letter that was sent. The first choke point is, of course, the restrictions on exports of high-precision tools and machinery. So that is something that the Chinese government has been doing for a very long time now, and this is across sectors. But over the last 8 months or so, these choke points, these restrictions have now been extended to electronics manufacturing. Choke point 2 is the critical mineral risks that has been the talk of the town for a while now. We've seen with rare earth magnets, but this is going to impact electronics manufacturing as well, not just EVs. And 3 is the travel restrictions and recall of Chinese technical workers. This is something that we saw happen with Foxconn very recently. And now we're seeing this on a broader basis as well across manufacturers, across smartphone manufacturers, because this leads to some sort of stalling of technology transfer, as well as the new sort of product development that Indian companies want to do. So these are the sort of informal Chinese sanctions that have been affecting this electronics industry, and this body really wants to set up an urgent meeting and also find some solutions to mitigate these issues.
Thanks, Rishabh, for that. Moving on, the Ola and Uber driver strike has entered its 4th day with no breakthrough in sight. Drivers are staging a sit-in at Azad Maidan, sticking to their main demands: fairer fares and equal rates with metered taxis. However, this ongoing strike affects more than just the drivers. Customers, working professionals and commuters are finding it exceedingly difficult to commute, and their cabs often delayed or simply cancelled. My colleague Shubhana was on ground speaking directly to the protesters and the customers. Let's listen in.
Mumbai's lifeline, the app-based cab services have come to a halt. Now that's because Ola and Uber cab drivers are off the road and commuters are in pain. We are here surrounded by the cab drivers who are in a sit-in protest at Azad Maidan. This is the 4th day of the protest. Sir, I wanted to ask, this is the 4th day of the protest. What are your demands? What is the problem? If you could just explain it to us.
We have a very basic demands. I mean, actually the fun fact is that we have zero demands. All that we are asking is execution of the existing laws that we have in place. But unfortunately, the startups who boast about employment generation, and we in everyday's newspaper we read about the fundings they are getting in millions and billion dollars. You can witness here they are misusing that funding and they are exploiting passengers and drivers, and that's why lakhs of drivers in all over Maharashtra, in Pune, Mumbai and Nagpur have stopped working.
कस्टमर से कंपनी कितना लेता है? 400-500 लिया तो हमारे हाथ में कितना आता है? 250-300 आता है. हाँ, उसमें सीएनजी जाता है. उनको एसी भी चाहिए तो एसी से माइलेज घटता है बराबर. दूरी का 1 घंटा लगेगा, 1-1.5 घंटा 2 घंटा ट्रैफिक में चला गया. हमारे जेब में क्या बचता है?
At the moment it's so difficult to commute across, even if I have to go like visit a friend or for a meeting within the area, like now in BKC, as it is very difficult to get a normal auto. We try Ola, Uber or anything as such. Firstly, the wait time is so long. Uske upar se nobody is ready to go. Once they do reach, they will be like, okay, no, they'll cancel at the end moment. So of course it is very difficult.
It's been hectic, booking a rickshaw or even a cab on the app because it's cancelling on its own or the drivers are not accepting it. And it's because this is a corporate area. In the evening, as usual, it gets a bit crowded and people are booking at the same time. With the strike, it's been more and more hectic.
This is the 4th day of the protest and they're demanding a right fare per kilometer rate and relief from steep commission cuts. Well, they're not just asking, they're making demands. Now, a committee is set to meet the representatives of Ola and Uber today to negotiate on the same. But for stranded riders and frustrated drivers, the wait still goes on. This is Subhana Sheikh with camera person Prahlad from Mumbai.
Thanks, Shubhana, for that. Now let's take a look at some of our other stories that are making news around India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone and inaugurated development work worth over 7,000 crore in Motihari, Bihar. Addressing a rally later, he accused the opposition of playing politics in the name of the poor. The Prime Minister also visited West Bengal's Durgapur and launched development projects of 5,500 crore rupees. These projects span across sectors such as oil and gas, power, road and railway, and he criticized the ruling party TMC for hindering the development of the state and vowed to transform it. Kenvue, a consumer health company and makers of Benadryl cough syrup, announced the launch of cough clinics, an industry-first initiative in association with the Association of Physicians of India. As part of this initiative, Kenvue plans to establish 10 cough centers of excellence around India, and these centers will run cough clinics with an aim to scale knowledge on scientific best practices around cough evaluation and expand its usage in treatment. Justice Yashwant Verma of the Allahabad High Court has petitioned the Supreme Court to challenge the findings of an in-house 3-judge panel that alleged that he had amassed large amounts of cash stored at his official residence. Verma claims the panel appointed by former CJI Sanjeev Khanna denied him a fair chance to respond and drew conclusions without full investigation. Chaitanya Baghel, son of former Chhattisgarh Chief Minister, has been arrested in a money laundering probe. This is linked to a 2,100 crore rupee liquor scam. The ED raided their Bhilai residence where Chaitanya was detained under the PMLA for alleged non-cooperation. A suspected cylinder blast caused the 2nd and 3rd floors of a 3-story chawl to collapse in Bandra East in Mumbai. This has injured at least 7 people and has trapped several others. Firefighters, police and civic teams rushed to the scene and rescue efforts are underway. Individuals and HUFs having taxable capital gains income can now start filing income tax returns ITR2 for financial year 24-25. The income tax return form is now enabled for filing through online mode with pre-filled data at the e-filing portal. And that's all the time we had on this edition of Profit 360. Stay tuned to NDTV Profit for more news and updates.
जनता के पास सवाल ही सवाल है, जवाब ढूंढने को वो देखती है न्यूज और देखती है यहां तो सवालों का मायाजाल है। ऊपर से ये अलग फाइट है, कोई पूरा लेफ्ट तो कोई पूरा राइट है, बीच में मुद्दे के साथ कौन है, जनता को जवाब चाहिए। इसीलिए सवालों की परेड नहीं, मैं लाऊंगा खबरों की कचहरी। मैं शुभांकर मिश्रा, मेरे साथ देखिए कचहरी रात 8 बजे सिर्फ एनडीटीवी इंडिया पर।
They promised guaranteed returns. They advertised illegal trading in broad daylight. But NDTV Profit picked up the trail.
2 साल हो गए मैडम। गब्बर ट्रेडिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको? हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा।
We called, we questioned, we exposed.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसे हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है?
मैडम एक बात को खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए तो बताओ, कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं?
Because your money deserves protection, not empty promises. Easy money, hard lesson. Stay alert. Verify before you invest.
Imports become the exception rather than the norm. And increasingly we do almost, last year for example, of the contracts that we signed of record 2,09,000 crores, 81% was awarded to the domestic industry. Our intent is to manufacture in India, preferably with design also in India.
I am so elated to be on the same screen as the Defense Secretary, and I get a chance to talk about what he said.
In certain areas, like for example, artillery guns and armored vehicles, or in some categories of missiles like the BrahMos and the Akash, we've come of age.
What Defense Secretary Sir said is 100% true, and today private industry can really increase their involvement in R&D.
I am very proud to say that we make in our categories that we have been supplying to our defense forces some of the best platforms in the world.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold ICICI for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.